Welcome to another episode with State Representative Alyson Sullivan-Almeida as we sit and catch up with the representative on many of the things that she does in and around the district and up at the State House. How are you doing?
Doing great. How about you, Kevin?
It's been a while, and we're in the beautiful Whitman Town Park. And a lot of shenanigans that before we started.
I wish there was
your aide, Catherine.
Yeah, I wish there was a behind-the-scenes camera going on. Catherine is very much enjoying being behind the scenes right now, directing. I think she might have, maybe
a career.
Yeah.
Like a volunteer?
Well, no, definitely not taking her from me, because there's no way you can take her from the 7 Plymouth district.
A hobby.
Yeah, maybe.
Hobby.
Yeah, come hang out.
She's
giving the thumbs up, the head nod. I think it might be something there.
I think she's gonna get credit for being a floor director for this production. I think. Yeah, maybe a co-producer or something. We'll give her some kind of a special title, but the idea of the conversation that we have on a regular basis, we've been privileged to be able to have a regular conversation with Representative Sullivan-Almeida about a lot of things that are going on, whether it's bills that she's working on, whether it's events that are happening in the community. Let's start off with you. How's everything? We're, enjoying June,
yes.
going into July.
Oh, it's crazy. Time's flying. I look at, my daughter Alina and how quickly she's just growing, and I'm like, wow, time is definitely flying around here. But I'm enjoying it. I'm in, June into July, so it's busy season up at the State House, but we're getting it done, especially with the help of Catherine today and every day. She's, a great help and asset to this community.
I don't know if we had a chance to talk about it in the last conversation we had, but I think it might have been on the cusp of the House passing their version of the fiscal 25 bill. Anything that you can kind of enlighten the folks to about it?
I know it's in the conference committee right now because it doesn't match up between the House and the Senate. And that's very typical, by different amendments that are filed, different regulations that are put in. There's never been a time, I don't think, in the history of budget filing that, and I'm sorry, I hear beeping, so distractions in the town park, right? In the history of budget filing, that there's ever been a very perfect budget that never has to go through conference.
So I would ask this, knowing that right now the Senate, I believe, either has the budget or they have passed their budget?
They passed their budget. It's now in conference committee, so we're just kind of waiting for them to kind of discuss the particulars of the budget and where they can iron out. So it is identical, and we pass a budget between the both House and the Senate. This is my first year that I actually voted against the budget, the overall budget. I thought there was more we could have done in different areas, and I think the priority was where not my priorities lie. So I voted down the budget, especially when I know there's so many families in my district struggling, so many businesses in my district struggling. I just couldn't support some legislation, a budget that gave way too much money to people that I don't think have a right to it.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, they're already teasing that the fiscal 26 budget is going to be a tough year when it comes to the finances. A lot of that will depend on the revenue that the state is able to take in. I mean, I believe one of your communities in your district actually, was going for an override. That's Whitman.
Yep.
I think Abington was able to get through it and make some measures to be able to have a level funded budget. You can probably enlighten us to East Bridgewater, but it's tough, especially when it comes to education. People really care about the education, the quality of education that public schools get.
Yep. That's always kind of the point of contention, I think, in all the communities is around education, the educational budget. It's such a big part of our state budget as well as our local communities in their budget. But it's a struggle, especially when you're relying so much on state aid and not knowing what you're getting. A lot of these communities take up their budget prior to us finalizing our budget. Yep. So it's almost like you're playing a guessing game on what you're going to get and what you're going to receive. You kind of have an idea, but the same token, nothing's set in stone and indefinitely. Sorry, the wind's blowing as always, right? Earlier, Catherine was saying it was working in my favor. Now I think it's working against me. I think she might have jinxed me a little bit. But we have these towns that are really trying to figure out their town budget and with kind of the unknown of where the state's going to go.
let's kind of talk about that. I feel that every legislator tries to do their best to secure special funding or bring something back to the district. Any success for fiscal 25?
You know, we did have some success, not as great as what I was hoping for. I don't want to put it out there too soon because, like I said, we're waiting for that final budget. What we saw last fiscal year in January of this January, the governor did some 9C cuts. So that was very frustrating, especially being someone who's advocated for our district very hard up at the State House, along with my counterpart, Senator Brady, and then to find out that all of our earmarks were cut in half. I mean, I got a funding for a van in Abington, and I remember having a conversation with the administration saying, how do I tell the town now they can only get half a van? You know, so that was frustrating. And so I've been very open and honest with the town administrators throughout the district, being, you know, giving them the mindset, yes, I'm advocating for funding, but I just don't know what or how that's going to look, especially after the history of the last fiscal year.
One of the things as a legislator, you file bills at the beginning of the legislative session. That was last year. I believe between 6,000 7,000 bills, maybe more, that are put through the process, sent to their respective committees. Any success with any of your bills reporting out of the committee and might end up, you know, getting a direction or maybe even being signed into law?
Yeah, you know, we have a couple of pieces of legislation that have been forwarded over to Ways and Means, which is always a promising, you know, message to get when your bill's not voted into study, you know, for example, dying out in this legislative process. So it's exciting to hear some of my pieces of legislation are in front of Ways and Means. One of them that really comes to mind is around our veteran community and really having this trial pilot program that would allow veterans to have access to marijuana and instead of the opioids, right? So if they're struggling with any kind of physical pain, that studies have shown marijuana to be able to kind of help with that, instead of turning to narcotics and big pharma kind of prescriptions. So that's in front of Ways and Means. I'm hopeful that that will come through into fruition. I know I have a plumber's piece of legislation that a plumber reached out to me and asked me to file. That's, you know, continuously moving forward. So we're hopeful that some of our legislation will go. You know, I was just on a conference committee, and it wasn't a bill that I filed, but it was a bill that I strongly supported since getting elected, was around what we call revenge porn. And I was assigned to the conference committee back a couple of months ago, and we were able to come to a decision between the House and the Senate. And I was excited to stand on the House floor and speak on why this legislation is so important for our communities across the Commonwealth. And that was able to be passed unanimously by the House and the Senate, and now we're just waiting for the governor to sign it.
And is that showing promise at the time of this taping? Show promise that she's going to sign that?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely a push for it. You know, this piece of legislation expands not just on what we call revenge porn and having pieces in place to really hold people accountable that disseminate, you know, images that are taken in a private area of an individual and disseminated without their consent. It really empowers victims to have tools that will be there for them to get help when they need it. There's also expands on our restraining orders and allowing for coercive control to come into play when you're getting a restraining order against someone that you've been in an intimate relationship with or a family member. So there's definitely there's some key aspects here, and like I say, it's a win for survivors and victims across the Commonwealth, and for so many pieces of legislations that we've taken up, where I feel like it's more of offender-based. This is really victim-based, and I'm happy to stand in support of it.
And a local elected official, individual who actually, Alex Haggerty.
Yes, yeah, former selectman for the town of Abington.
Selectman, I believe he's a elected state committee person.
Yep, our state committee man. Yep.
Was someone who was an Abington. I think he actually somebody who spoke to it at one point.
Yeah. Yep. So Alex was definitely another individual that came forward, a survivor of what we call revenge porn. I also have another constituent in the district as well who was very impactful back in December of 2021, I want to say it was, under Governor Baker. I don't know if you recall, he did those roundtable events. Mm-hmm. And she came forward and she hid her identity for obvious reasons. And so we referred to her as KM, and that's what she wanted to be referred to as, because of what she suffered when she was in high school, being a victim of this so-called revenge porn, and then being told when she was in high school that she potentially could have been charged because she's the one who sent the images in the first place to her then boyfriend because they were underage. So not knowing kind of the long-term effects that could happen when you send those images. These kids, back when she was in high school, cell phones were a new thing, social media was a very new thing, and she thought she was sending these images to someone that loved her and cared for her. So she was very outspoken on having that education piece in this legislation to educate these young folks on sending those kind of images and what it may do to them in their future. And it was a tough story to hear, but she was a strong individual, and she's now a thriver. She's a warrior. I mean, she's a force to be reckoned with, including Alex. I think it takes a lot to tell your personal story. I know from experience, putting kind of your history out there and not knowing how people are going to react is a hard thing to do.
Let's talk about local recognition and how important it is. As a legislator, being able to get give citations, and I think recently you actually were part of giving out citations for an event that had happened in your district. I believe it was in Abington, and the heroic work of many first responders and other individuals who helped with a fire in a large complex, and being able to recognize their work.
Yeah. So I don't know, I know you're aware of where the building is, but it's an apartment complex in Abington on the Brockton-Abington line, and an apartment ended up having a fire, and it spread. I hate to say the term, but like wildfire. It spread very quickly, and I was able to recognize not just the Abington firefighters that responded, but some of the Abington police members, the 911 dispatchers, because I think people kind of forget how important their role is in an emergency and in a crisis, as well as Holbrook firefighters that responded, because I believe they might have been somewhat first on the scene, is my understanding of the situation. Also, 2 of our Board of Selectmen members, our COA director and assistants over there at the COA, and also our health nurse, and I believe the animal rescue officer, as well as our building inspector. There's so many people, and you look at it, a community came together when people were in need, and they really were able to work together and really help individuals. I think it was like 30-something families that got displaced. So it was a big deal for our town.
And of course, mentioning Amy, Lindsay, and Joe, respectively, as COA director, public health nurse, and of course for animal control. Yeah, you forget the animals. I mean, I don't forget them because I am an animal lover and I have, a dog myself. But, in moments like that, where do you put them? Especially when the owners don't have a place to go. Where do you get that help? So I think everyone that needed to stepped up and was there to help and lending a helping hand. And I couldn't be prouder to be from the town of Abington and see how they work together. Let's talk about your full session. Is fast approaching, July 31st. Talk to me about that day. What's happening up until then? Oh, a lot, Kevin. I feel like we always kind of leave it to the last 8 weeks of session to really get things done. So we have a lot of conference committees that are going on right now for legislation that we have passed in the previous, year and a half. So it'll be interesting to see how busy it gets. Catherine and I are preparing for long days and long nights up at the State House. I think she's trying to convince me to buy a couch, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just kidding. We are totally kidding. It's going to be busy, but we love this part of I think the legislative session. There's some excitement to it. Like, what are we going to get done before the end of the session? My hope is that some of the pieces of legislation will die before we get to July 31st, but we'll see. Let's talk about this is an active time of year where communities host events. Where we are right now, I believe just a week or two ago, you had Whitman Day.
Yep.
Also, you had
Founders
Day, which
yep.
is technically Founders Weekend.
Yes.
East Bridgewater has their set of activities. I don't know if it's the hosted stuff on the Commons.
Yeah, they have the summer. I know they have some of the summer concert events that they have going on in East Bridgewater. It is a busy, like I said, a busy time of year between both legislatively up at Beacon Hill, but also in the district. But this is the exciting part. You know, we get to be out in the community. Whitman Day was very successful, seeing all the community members coming together and really hosting a great event here in the park. July 4th is coming up, which I'm super excited about too. That's another fun event in the park of Whitman. And then we had the fireworks at Founders Day weekend, and being able to give out beach balls. I know all my campaign helpers love giving out the beach balls, but hearing, you know, the kids come up and saying, I have mine from last year, or I have mine that still says Alyson Sullivan on it. And, you know, it's exciting when they kind of know that they're going to get something, you know, be able to come over, grab a beach ball, play with it during, you know, the events that happen on Founders Day weekend. And then the fireworks were amazing. Alina's first time seeing fireworks, and she did such a great job. I was a little nervous, but she was enjoying it. She kept pulling off her headphones, which I was a little nervous about.
She wasn't startled at all?
No, she was enjoying it. She was actually excited. She was bouncing around, laughing, looking at everyone like, are you seeing this? You know, ooh, that's her favorite thing. Ooh. So she was doing that, you know. Catherine was great. She was able to get a few photos of my husband and I holding her, watching the fireworks. So it was a special moment for me.
Let's talk about office hours or district hours.
Yep.
Do those continue throughout the summer? What's the idea of if folks want to find out when they can kind of either come and meet you,
yep,
or just something that constituent services that they want to talk to you about? How can they do that?
So we do typically keep them going during the summer. July, we usually take it off just because it falls on the July 4th kind of holiday. So we usually take July off as far as like the scheduled office hours. It doesn't mean we take July off. We're available for anyone that needs to meet with us, whether it be at office hours or an individual time to meet up, because I know that the times for the office hours don't always work for people. But Catherine and I make sure we make ourselves very much accessible and available to our communities, whether it be through a phone call, a Zoom meeting, and or in-person meeting. We make sure to help. Office hours are as busy as can be. You know, between Abington, Whitman, East Bridgewater, we have people coming in all the time. And then we also get to see our senior folks that go, they have luncheons during our office hours, so we get to see them and kind of hear their issues that they have. And that they see on a daily basis. So those will still continue, even during, you know, our summer break from legislating.
Okay. Anything we haven't touched upon, but you want to take a moment as we get ready to say goodbye, at least for this episode?
You know, I just want to really appreciate my legislative aide, Catherine. Most people in the community have heard her voice, have had an email. You probably have heard her laugh once or twice. It's a very contagious laugh, but she's holding it in behind the scenes right now. But she's phenomenal. You know, she has stepped up on a number of occasions to the plate when needed, with no complaints. You know, she really enjoys what she does. She loves helping people, and it shows by her work. She's attached to so many people in this community, and if you haven't had the opportunity to meet her, I really encourage you to do so.
And if folks want to reach out and contact your office, how can they do that?
I think the best way to do that is definitely through email. That is something that is accessible through our phones. So it's alyson.sullivan@mahouse.gov or catherine.mullen@mahouse.gov. And they can call the office as well, but you know, the best and quickest point of contact is through email.
Well, we want to thank you for always making yourself readily available. And it was also having Catherine be part of the shenanigans, or at least helping out with the production here. So we thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
You got it. We want to thank you for tuning into programs like this. The idea is to keep you better informed as to what our elected officials are doing. And they do a great job. Everybody is willing to sit down and have a conversation just to catch you up. We thank you for tuning in. Until our next conversation, you have yourself a great day.